We are very, very happy to have Dr. Linda Mannila here this morning. Dr. Mannila got her PhD in 2009 from Akademi, which is the university at this part of Finland who's Swedish-speaking, and the university is actually Swedish-speaking at Turku. And we were very lucky that she attended 6CSE this year. This is the very high-profile computer science education conference, and Frederick Heinz was there trying to find out what's going on in the world, been creating the U program, and we were lucky to have both Linda, and this afternoon we have another session from the latest from 6CSE, if you wish. So just go ahead, and we have you until about 10.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. So I'm Linda. Not used to wearing these, and I had to put it here, so I hope that I won't put my arms all through the cables. I've been working with educational technology since I started my master's in 2002. And then I made this very, very high-tech web-based course in 2002, so you could imagine how high-tech it was. But we made this course for high school students, because in Finland we don't have computer science in high school, and it turns out you don't really have it anywhere. But then we wanted to do something active towards high school students, so we made this decision that, okay, so we'll put all of our basic courses online. And as we already heard, Akademi University is the only Swedish-speaking university in Finland, but the Swedish-speaking population in Finland is quite geographically dispersed. So we have, starting in Österbotten with Vasa and all of these places, down all through the border to Helsinki and Porvoo and all of these other cities in the south. And this is quite a challenge, because we can't really say, okay, so we'll gather a bunch of students interested in computer science and have the course in, say, Turku, because then we would get a handful at best. So we really needed to do this online, because that was the only way we could really reach the students in different schools and get them activated. And this is where I'm coming from. This is the first thing I did in educational technology. After that, I've been involved in quite many projects, and the latest one I'll give a short demonstration of here is also towards high school students. It's a European Union project where we've been developing interactive textbooks in mathematics. We now have the books for the first year ready, and these books have been piloted in the participating countries, and that's Estonia, Sweden, and Finland. So I'll give you a brief overview of that book as well. But okay, so if we look at the background a bit, so I wasn't there when we had slide rules. That I've never seen that one. I've played with this as a kid, but I've never had it in education. Same thing goes for this one. My kids play with this abacus, but we haven't really used it in education. I did do something on a typewriter before the computer came, and now then people are arguing that, okay, so the textbook is the next thing that we'll have this same fate, that people will say that, oh, we used those back in the days, and they were really heavy, and we had to put them in our backpack. So I looked up a bit of some kind of headlines from the internet, looking at, okay, so what have people been saying? So different headlines from basically the 21st century. So the e-book revolution is just around the corner. The end of the textbook as we know it. iPad signal the beginning of ends for textbooks. No more textbooks. In a digital future, textbooks are history. And then somebody also came along and stole part of my title and used it before me. Who needs textbooks anyway? And we've seen these kind of headlines for quite some time, right? We've seen them. And so the question is, why am I giving this presentation now, and what do we then want instead? I think that why now is, we could just see, so when probably somebody was giving a talk just like this 5 years ago and 10 years ago, it's just that what we expect from an electronic book, from learning material that can be used online, has changed. So when I made my first web-based course, it was really cool, it was hot stuff, but if somebody were to look at it now, they would be like, okay, did somebody learn anything from that? So our expectations have changed. So just as some kind of background for this, David Wiley works a lot on open materials in the UK, and he's given this very good presentation on openness and the disaggregated future of higher education. And he takes as a starting point this difference between then and now. And if you think about society then and society now and how information technology has changed our society and how we live, it doesn't really matter what we take as this then. We could take then being 5 years ago. We could then take then being 15 or 30 years ago. But still we can see some actual changes that have taken place. So he argues that, okay, so if you look at material, TV, radio, phones, newspapers, movies have gone from being analog to digital, right? That's nothing new. We are more mobile today, so phones, internet access, employment, they were all tethered. They were put in one place earlier, but now we could use them. We could move around, still working, we can talk on our phone, etc. We were more isolated, and also material was more isolated earlier. People were isolated, but also content and systems. We had a newspaper, and the material was in the newspaper. Whereas now we can put it on anything online, and we could connect other people to it just in seconds. We're also seeing a trend from generic to personal. Nobody wanted to customize their TV 20 years ago, or having like themes in their books and things that we're seeing now, because we're so used to customizing our user experience regardless of what we're actually doing. We're also seeing been seeing for quite some time a shift from just consuming to creating. Web 2.0 started as blogs and everything, so we're now anybody can be a creator, right? And we're also moving from closed to open. And if you think about information technology, first movement was open source technology. So first we have had all of the software being closed, and you didn't really get to see the source code unless you worked for the company. But now you have lots of open source projects. You can just go to GitHub and download a version of a project and start working on it yourself. And the same thing goes for data and content with wikis and blogs, etc. So this is what he says is the difference then between then and now. And then he takes this analogy and looks at what's happened to education. And unfortunately, we have education on the left-hand side, and the everyday life on our right-hand side. This is what he argues. So now you could say that, okay, and he talks about this daily divide, that if education doesn't really meet everyday life, there's this daily divide that may be a huge threat to education, because today you could just as easily find all the material that's available, for instance, in a textbook. You could find it online. So it becomes a huge challenge for higher education and education in general to really meet the needs of the student in such a way that students still want to come and still find it motivating. But okay, so you might want to say that, okay, hey, we do have digital text, right? We have PDFs and we have websites and everything. So digital text is nothing new. And also mobile, we can put all our slides online. We can have our learning material available for people. And also connected, we can have discussion forums on Moodle or whatever, connecting students to each other. And we can also probably personalize the experience in some way, also have students create using course blogs, etc. But the idea is that if this is the background, so what kind of materials do we really want? And now I don't want to claim that I know the answer. I'm actually going to UK next week to participate in a working group at the IDIXI conference, trying to look into user requirements and these design strategies for open source electronic textbooks for computer science. So I hope that I'll be a bit wiser after that conference or writing the report. But if you look at what kind of material is actually coming across when you start looking at what's already done, they have some features in common. So they're all usually interactive. There are no longer these static PDFs. They are personalized. Students have the opportunity to put their own personal touch on the material. They can be social. Students can use this, or also be social while learning. It can be adapted. Both teachers and students can go in and make additions, make comments, etc. And it's also becoming more and more open. So, and I want to just have a brief overview over these types of features and look at, okay, so how could it look, or what does it look like in the books that are already available? So if you start with interactive and personalized, there are these startup companies that are, as you all know, for instance in the US, but also here in our, at least in our university, students aren't really keen on buying these very expensive textbooks. Because when you need so many of them, you meet quite many of them during your study years, so it becomes quite expensive. And I also find it difficult to motivate my students to buy these books because, well, I guess I'm doing myself a disservice. If you really put energy into making the material, they just realize, okay, so I'll manage with the material that you put on our website, so I don't really need the book. But if we were to have these interactive and more personalized books, then maybe they would actually find some use in using them also. So there are these startup companies that are now working on these interactive textbooks. So one is Inkling. They have books on computers and tech, but they aren't the Pearson book, they aren't the McGraw-Hill books, but there still are some books that then they are available online for just a fraction of the price. And there's also then these different types of interactive features in them that we'll look at in just a moment. We have Boundless, that's been, if you've read the news on education in the US lately, it's been, they are in court now because they were sued by three publishers for making free textbooks. And then we have another one that's Snow, where you can also rent the book, so you rent it for 6 months, you rent it for a year, or however long you want it. So these are some actors working now on these textbooks. And of course, Apple is also one player. They have these iBooks textbooks. There's nothing textbook about them. That's their tagline. You can find many different types of tagline for these digital textbooks, interactive textbooks, whatever you want to call them. And Apple also provides this iBooks author so that you could create these books on your own. So what all of these systems have in common is that they are trying to add interactivity into what was previously just a static PDF or a static web page. So one thing is that they add these traditional study tools. So students are able to make comments. They can underline things in the text and then just add a comment. This can also be done in a PDF, of course, but it's something that they also add. Same goes for highlighting. You can highlight and you can share all of these things also with your students, with your friends, and you can search both the text and the comments and everything. So these are basically quite basic things. You could do this with a PDF, right? And something that you could do also with traditional web pages is to use different types of media to cater for different learning styles. Maybe we're seeing more now a more thought out way of using this different type of media. So it's not that, oh, I'll Google and see if I find something, oh, here's a quiz, I'll just put it there so that students, if somebody wants to use it, they can do it. So maybe we want to think more about it. Okay, so now I need this kind of application or this kind of media to cater for somebody who doesn't learn this just by reading. So we need some kind of good visualization and infographing a 3D model or something. So that's catering for different learning styles. Another thing that's also part of these books and what they're also marketing quite heavily on is this self-assessment, so students are able to assess themselves. So more time is left for teachers because we can work more on these bigger problems and trying to get these higher order skills like synthesizing and analysis, whereas this, if you want to have these factual checks, etc., then you could do that with automated testing using quizzes and flashcards, etc. Something that's come quite heavily now during the last couple of years, and what we also touched on yesterday during the this talk on statistics is learning analytics, so basically big data in education or educational data mining. So this could be used for different kind of purposes. Naturally, if you think that you have, for instance, these MOOCs that I'll talk about in a bit, so you have hundreds of thousands of students signing up, and not all of them are actually active, but still the amount of interaction going on between the students and the learning material is huge, and now we have access to all of it if we just collect it. Naturally, there are privacy issues and everything that needs to be taken into account, but all of this in a smaller scale as well, this can be used on a student-to-student basis so that you could personalize the learning experience, have students see, okay, so this week I wasn't really that active, and if I want to become an A student or something, want to get the highest grade, so this is obviously what in previous years, students who got an A at this point of time, they had collected this many points, or at this point of time they had solved this many problems, etc. So that you get some kind of feeling on, okay, so where am I heading? And also making predictions, adapting the material, and also for the teacher to intervene, so that if you realize that, hey, okay, this student hasn't really looked at the book for 3 weeks, maybe I should go and have a talk with him and say, okay, is everything okay? Could I help him in any way? Which naturally requires quite a lot of effort from the teacher, but still these kind of opportunities are coming along. And this is from, one of the books is from a Pearson McGraw-Hill book, and the other one is from this Know. So they have this student dashboards with statistics on how you're doing. And then a bit about being social and connected. So as I said, students are used now to being able to like everything. You can put a thumbs up on everything, right? And maybe when you talk about learning material, you should also have a thumb down, right? So you could get somebody saying that, okay, so this material is real, this section you really need to make some changes to because I really don't understand, or you have to add something here. Ratings, you might want to rate material, rate your peers' work, etc. And also sharing. So a student in our university taking a course, the teacher has added an example that they feel is quite good, so then you could share it with somebody else. And as always, when we talk about these things that share and rate, so integrity issues, privacy issues, all these things, that this is still so new compared to the old textbook, so these are all things that we need to take into account. And also collaboration and help. So you could have these study groups online. You could have a system for that also inside the learning material. And I read once the Project Tomorrow from the States have made this quite huge survey among K-12 students about what they would like from an interactive textbook, or from the textbook that they would use in the future. And one thing was that they would like direct contact with an online tutor. So basically, if you highlight a section in the book that you don't understand, and then you just like evoke the tutor that, hey, I don't understand this sentence, could you please help me? So these kind of things that naturally it requires quite a lot from us teaching if we're going to sit there like 24/7. That's not expected from us, but thinking back 10 years, what was possible then, so what will be possible in 10 to 15 years. And then this openness. This is probably the biggest thing now that's coming. And the first actual big thing on this was in South Africa, this WULA project, where this researcher from the University of Cape Town went to this exhibition and gave a presentation of, or like showed youngsters there, okay, so this is how, I don't remember, something in physics worked. And the simulation went well, but then the next day the same guys came back, the same students came back with their notebooks, said, okay, with their blue notebook hefte, notebooks, and asked them, okay, so could you please write that down for us so that we remember? So all of these kids came there with their notebooks wanting him to write this down, because they didn't have textbooks. I mean, everybody doesn't even have these normal textbooks that we're now bashing down on. And he thought this was such a disaster. So then he just decided, okay, so I'll gather a bunch of teachers, and then we'll start writing these science texts for high schools, and then we'll just make them available online so that everybody has the chance to learn. So that's basically the first really huge movement in this open direction in education. After that, we've had South Korea, for instance, in 2007, deciding to make all their texts for all school levels digital by 2015. This has now been a bit. Lately, they've realized that, okay, so putting everything online isn't actually, it doesn't solve all problems. So now they're thinking of not going that fast and not to that extent, but still it was this initiative. And in 2012, I guess Kate probably can say more, I'm not an expert on California, but the California government signed this bill that they will fund 50 college textbooks so that they will be available free for all students in California colleges. Which basically means that a regular student might save over $1,500 a year, which is quite a lot for a student at that age. So the movement that we're seeing is that from a textbook being a long and well-planned project among publishers with this selected group of teachers or writers creating these books, we're going to, for instance, content hackathons. We had one in September last year. Since I've been working also on mathematics textbooks, which is the project I told you about, this came quite as a surprise for us because we didn't really know about it, but we had in September we just got an announcement, okay, so we are 30 guys, or 30 people, not only guys, always also women, but so we're sitting down for a week and we've been planning this, and now we'll just get writing and we'll write the first open mathematics high school textbook. And today you can find all of those on GitHub, just like any software. I mean, you have this, you can't really see, but it's MAA1, which is our first, it's functions and equations. We have MAA2, which is another textbook in the Finnish high school curriculum. Just download it, make any changes you want, remove material, modify it, make additions and restructure it just according to what you would like yourself. And when it comes to open material, the MOOCs are naturally the thing that's been quite topical the last year, and New York Times dubbed 2012 the year of the MOOC. So we have edX, we have Coursera, we have Udacity, all of these different actors now going online, offering this huge amount of videos or quizzes, other type of learning materials for anybody to use online. And naturally, this has also brought up the question, okay, so now we're making ourselves obsolete. I won't go into that very much here because that's the topic of the afternoon talk, but still, we need teachers. I mean, we went to this conference in Denver, as we heard in the SIGSI conference, and there was a panel on MOOCs, and there were a lot of other discussions on MOOCs as well. And what was the consensus was that MOOCs provide information, they don't provide education. So just because the information is out there, it doesn't really mean that anybody learns. So I hope that that's what we provide, or that should be our ambition, that is what we bring into the classroom, that we make this material come alive, we make it understandable for the students. Another thing that's also been quite heavily criticized is why do we need these MOOCs? What's the point in taking hundreds of thousands of students registering for a course if just like 5% of them actually finish? So this is from a bioelectricity MOOC given in last fall, and yes, the completion rate, those actually completing the course are down here, and they are like, what could that be? Here we have this here is something like 13,000, for instance, probably. So we might have a couple of hundreds at tops down here. So this MOOC concept has been criticized quite heavily for this. But we also have to remember that anybody can register. I've registered for lots of MOOCs, I confess. Anybody else confess? And haven't really done anything about them? No? I'm the only one? No? Oh, great, okay. But okay, I need to do something about that. No, but okay, so it's really easy to register. I mean, it's the same as we would take Linköping University, or everybody who applies for Linköping University, regardless of if you come in or not. You show an interest in studying at Linköping University, and then you compare that to who actually graduates. It's more or less the same thing. I mean, registering for a MOOC is the same thing as applying to an education. So comparing these to each other isn't really a good thing to do. And also there have been studies showing that at Stanford University that we have 4 different types of persons taking these MOOCs. Most of them are actually people who already have a degree, and those who just want some further education, find out a bit about something new. So you have these 4 different types. So you have auditors. They watch videos, maybe take some quizzes, but are more or less only there to get some input from another teacher and learn something new. You have the completers. They watch everything, they do the assignments that are needed, etc. And then you have the disengagers, who are very active at the beginning, that, okay, so now I'm going to learn this new thing, and then you start looking at your calendar and realize that, oh, I have to teach this and this week, and oh, I have this and this paper deadline, and then you just drop out and think that, okay, so I'll come back in 2 weeks, but then you never do, and hope that they will keep the material open so that you can go back during your summer holiday or something. And then you have the samples who watch this material at random times according to their own preference. But just last month we had it was expected, but then the news came from Georgia Tech that they will be offering now a master's level computer science degree completely via the MOOCs. The courses will be free if you don't want credits, but if you want to get the degree, then it will cost something around $7,000 US, which is still very cheap compared to other getting a degree at being there in real life, as to say. So we'll see what comes out of this. It will start in fall 2014, and they expect in 3 years they will grow the amount of students in computer science from 300 to 10,000. So it's quite a change. So okay, if we have all of these different things that are coming along that we already have, so if we were to design this interactive digital learning material for our own class, I teach programming and data structures and algorithms mostly. So would I like to pick some pieces here? Okay, I'll take the MOOC videos, I'll get a quiz from some kind of online learning tool, I'll use my own slides that I've been working on so much the last couple of years, I can't throw those away. Maybe I'll find a specialized app for something, or have a master's student create something for their thesis project. So I have the opportunity to just pick and play. I'll just grab a lot of stuff and then have my students use it. Or do we want this all-in-one solution? Connections, for instance, that's a place where you can find text. If you want text material for something, you can find quite a lot on connections in different subjects. We have these open textbooks in, for instance, programming. How to think like a computer scientist. When I taught my first programming course in Python, I used this same book, but at that time it was a static PDF. But now it's quite interactive, so you have these automatic assessment quizzes that are intertwined with the text. So you have text, you have code, students can write their own code and execute it in the browser. You have videos there, and you have this debugging mode so that you can see it. Okay, so what happens if I execute this particular part or this code, this function definition, and these three lines of code? What happens if I execute that in my browser? So you can see how the variables change, and there's no stack there, but all of these different states of the program. For data structures and algorithms, we have this OpenDSA project. It's a new project, and for those of you teaching data structures, and algorithms, this is also something that we'll be working on during this working group in Kent. And it's basically a collaboration between Finland and the States, the US. The idea is to create an open source book for for teaching data structures and algorithms. So we have this, also here we have text, we have examples, and we have intertwined with the text, we have this step forward, step backwards animation, and we also have then these quizzes and different types of questions all through the material. We have problem solving and algorithms and data structures, such a book also given by the Runestone Initiative, where we can have code that we can execute in the browser. We can add our own code. So basically here you have to write a function that takes a parameter and returns a new string. So then you're supposed to add your own code in this field here, of course, and then they have made these test cases for you. So then when you've added your code, the code that you write there, the program that you write should make these test cases go through. So you get instant feedback. And we have Code Akademi, which helps you, which lets you learn anything from JavaScript to Java and other programming languages all in the browser. So you have these web-based tutorials. Khan Akademi, where you find different types of videos for different topics, and also assessment, so that you can assess yourself, different types of exercises. So you find videos there, and then maybe you want to use some kind of exercises. So we have in the other university in Turku, Turun yliopisto, University of Turku, they have been working since 2005 on something called Ville. Now I can't remember what it stands for, but basically it's an exercise tool. It started out with just having programming exercises, so you had automatically assessed programming exercises, but now we also have visualization, sorting, we have different kinds of surveys, and this has also been used in mathematics education. So basically you can create as a teacher, you can go in and create your own exercises, and students will be automatically graded and get feedback, and you will also then get statistics on how the students are doing. So these are all different tools that can be used. Like you pick this one there and you pick this one there, and then you'll create your own learning environment depending on what you want for your course. But then the one that I talked to you about in the beginning, so this EU project, this eMath. So what we wanted to do there is not have this pick and play, but we wanted something that actually mimics a regular book, because this was for high school students. And we wanted to see that, okay, so if we take the material that we have now, because high school is somewhat different than universities, because in high school there is this set of skills that you have to cover. You have to learn. It's easy to say that you have to learn, that students have to learn. It's easier said than done, but you have this läroplan and this curriculum that says, okay, so these are the things that need to be covered. In Finland we have this matriculation exam at the end of the high school years, and then throughout your high school you hear, okay, so this is something that you read, this is something that usually comes up in the matriculation exam. So we don't really have that much choice on what is covered, but instead we wanted to try to make it as interactive and motivating for the students as possible. So I'll see if I manage to get that one up. Oh, here we have it. And unfortunately we don't have it in English yet. We just have it in 3 languages. So you can go up here. Sorry, something is still in Finnish here. But so you can go here and say, okay, so now we have this geometry book, and you can choose that, do you want to see it in Finnish, do you want to see it in Swedish, or do you want to see it in Estonian? So this is also good for language classes. So you could just use a mathematics book in your language class. So you can use the same book, but then change the language. You can choose different themes. So you can personalize the book. So this academic theme is what our professor wanted. It's just black and white. So it mimics a regular textbook, but then we have flames and we have other types of themes there. So let's put flames. having flames in mathematics books makes it so much easier, so much more fun. But actually these themes, they have a positive effect on high school students because they really like this idea. We can watch the book in 1-page or 2-page mode. We can add comments to the teacher, and we can add comments to the ones making the book, that is us. If they find some error, if they find that, okay, so we would need one example more on this, please add it, and they could tell us via that one. So this is now the teacher. So here we can add different things, so we can add marking, we can make comments, updates, etc., all in one. So this is the teacher book. Unfortunately, I'll just bear with me, I'll try to change the resolution a bit if that would make it easier to see. Let's see what it says. Oh. Oh, that's better. So we have lots of pictures, we have interactions, so you can drag and drop. This is not one of them, but so we have this step-by-step presentation, so you can, when you present this in class, teachers can take out a solution step-by-step and discuss that, okay, so how do we get to this point, how do we get to this point, etc. And this is also good for students so that they can see, okay, so did I understand, how do we go from this step here to this step here. So the way that the solutions are presented here is called structured derivations. I'm not going into that here, but the basic idea is that it introduces a bit of logic to mathematics representation and also adds these justifications. So students have to justify, and also the teacher has to justify what they're doing. But basically this presentation mode then makes it possible to use this in the classroom. The student has different... Oops, tarkistakäännös. Here we have assignments, and if you go now to the teacher's another book, I'll be able to see it here. So the idea is that the student can do absolutely everything in this book. So we have so for instance here, if I now were a student, I would see that, okay, so I have this, is x minus 1 a factor in this polynomial, and then I'll just click on this lös, this solve, and then I have an option on what I want to add there. So I might want to just add a graph, which then gives me a tool for adding graphs to the solution. We can add a sign chart. If you're familiar with sign charts from when you want to see if a function is positive or negative in a certain interval, you could add that. So there's a tool for that. You can add tables, you could add ordinary text, but you could also write your mathematics. Very difficult one, and then you just click here and add a new step, and it automatically gives you the next step. It copies the thing from the previous line here, so you just go in and modify it. You need to add the justification, so we add -4 to both sides. What happens then is that becomes 13 and that becomes... Oh, why would we want to do that? We definitely don't want to do that. We want to add -9 to both sides, right? That would make it better. So then we'll get -13, and then we need to add a relation here. And since we are using equations, if you go from one version of an equation to another and just do the same thing for both sides, you have equivalence. So then we'll just add an equivalence arrow there, and so on. So you can add these steps, and then when you're finished, you can either save it to continue on it later, or you can submit it. And if you submit it, the teacher gets in his book, he sees, okay, so 3 out of 15 students have submitted this one, and then the teacher can go in and have a look at the submission and give feedback on each line if you want to. So I could see it, okay, so here I would have had -4 there, so that's a problem. So I've done the calculation correctly, but I have an error in my justification. So if I want to, I could go in and mark this for my student. Okay, so you calculated correctly, but you had an error in your justification. And then the teacher submits it back, and the student gets feedback on it. Naturally, this is not something high school teachers have time to do. We wouldn't have time to do it, and high school teachers don't either. But what's come up as a good a good practice of using this is for teachers to take one assignment, for instance, the night before going to have a lecture, and skim through all the submissions and see, okay, so these are the things that seem to have been problematic. And then the teacher will know that, okay, so when we start the next lesson, this is what I'll be just briefly going back to for students to catch up on that material. I don't think I have more time to go through this, but if somebody wants to discuss it or see it in more detail, that's quite okay. I'll go forward with a couple of slides because Fredrik also wanted me to say something on the future. This is always such an interesting thing to do, right? You get to decide everything and design the future for yourself, but it's not easy. And I think I wrote in the abstract that I'll be making some careful predictions, so please don't expect way too much. But so a couple of quotes. So Terry Hike writes this blog on Teach Thought, and he says that technology has become not just a tool, but a standard and matter of credibility. So while learning by no means requires technology, to design learning without technology is an exercise in spite, proving a point at the cost of potential. So we can still have the book, the ordinary textbook, and we could do very well doing so. I mean, the teacher is still the most important part in this learning when we have these face-to-face classrooms. So there's nothing saying that we couldn't do it without technology. But then again, why would we? When we have all of these opportunities, so why would we choose not to use them? But then on the other hand, we also need to think about when we use technology and for what purposes. So thinking of this is by Andrew Savikas, who's working at O'Reilly Media. So thinking of the problem as how do we get a textbook onto an iPhone? That's framing the problem wrong, because then we put the technology in the forefront and decide, okay, so we have this technology, how can we use it in learning or teaching? So the challenge is how to make the best use of a medium, and this only talks now about the iPhone, that already shares 3 of our 5 senses, sight, speech, and hearing, along with geolocation, color video, and our nearly always on web connection, to accomplish the job of educating students. So I think this is something that we always need to keep in mind, that this is our ultimate goal, educating students, right, regardless of what we use to do it. But if you look at technology, we could see that this is by the Kleiner Perkins Byers Internet Trends Report from 2013. So we see at how the technology has come into play since '95. So this green line here, that's desktop PCs. The blue one is notebooks, laptops, and then we have tablets on this orange line here. And we see that the tablets are rising very, very quickly compared to the other ones. So now you might think, okay, so we need to create material for the tablets, right? And this is also what we're seeing in the market. There's a big hype on using tablets in education. But then, for instance, in Finland, we are now discussing, or there are heavy discussions on using IT in schools, how high school students aren't using computers enough in their education, how teachers don't know how to use it sufficiently well, because the matriculation exam, I think it's even more important for Finnish students than the nationella provet in Sweden, because you have lots of nationella provet, but you have many nationella provet. But in Finland, you only have one. You have one chance. At the end of your high school education, you go and take this matriculation exam, and that basically decides where can you go to study and all these things for your future education. And now, this is going to be digitized. We're going to give this exam on the computer. And this is now like, now we need to have everybody learning how to use the computer very, very well. And we see these tablets here, but now, just a couple of weeks ago, there was this decision, or at least a very strong suggestion, that we would, for these exams, there will be a requirement that the devices used have to be bootable and they have to have a good a physical keyboard, which catches all the keyboard events. So, for instance, these Bluetooth keyboards that we now have for the iPads, they don't capture all the normal key events. So that's out of the question. So what happens is that now that schools are investing money in technology, they're looking forward and they're seeing that, okay, so we will need this kind of computer for the matriculation exam in 2014, in 2016. All the exams will be digitized in 2019. So what kind of technology are they buying? Well, at least they're not buying tablets for this purpose, right? Because they don't have this. They don't have booting opportunities, and then the keyboards aren't good enough. But what's really what's been discussed now is that how could anybody know what kind of technologies are available for tablets in 2016? What kind of keyboards do we have then? So is this now something that we know that there's this distinction here that we can't let technology decide what we teach or how we teach things, how we create our material. But it's not. It doesn't seem right either to let this education situation that we will have these digitized exams, so that would rule out some kind of upcoming technologies, because we can't see into the future and decide, okay, is this something that will be possible then? So this is a real challenge right now, because we have to be able to look into the future when we really can't. So 2 trends for what's probably coming quite strongly in this material is this learning analytics. So we'll have this data-driven understanding of learning, so we don't have to guess what students know and don't know. We don't have to guess who's falling behind and who might not be falling behind. So we will be having all this data that I hope that somebody starts sending, or we will have lots of people also able to analyze this data, so that we're able to give students a better learning experience, and also aiding us in giving good feedback, the right kind of feedback, and aiding these quizzes, for instance, in giving good feedback. And the other thing that's probably also coming is game-based learning, because we have all these simulations and different types of in economy, history, and architecture that probably haven't been utilized enough, and there are lots of different new versions on game-based learning as well that's probably coming. Because 31% of gamers are actually my age. So it's probably a huge potential also for education, 18 to 35-year-olds. And open source textbooks are naturally also a hotbed for innovation in learning. If you are somebody who can actually think about new ways of creating things, presenting things in a way that might aid in learning, but you don't have the time to write the content. Now you have the content, so you can focus on making these interactions, these different kind of features that make it possible to innovate also in learning. But when content is free, so how do we make money? So publishers now start to think, okay, so they have to provide content for free, but maybe they can then have some add-on services, more examples, themes, online tutoring, different kinds of additional services that they could then charge money for. So if this was where we started, then and now, I might want to conclude that we are already quite well along the way of having this digital material that makes it possible to also move education from this then to this now column. But the question then is this enough? Because just taking this material that we had, this textbook material that we had, and add these interactivities and add these kind of different things there, if you think about what skills we want our students to learn in the future, or what we want them to learn now as well, we might also need to think about what kind of examples, what kind of assignments, etc. So it's still not only about putting the material on a new media, but also trying to think a bit about what kind of skills do we want our students to learn. And this was a headline in the Observer just a couple of days ago, that the advent of Google means we must rethink our approach to education. That we're still so hung up on what skills we needed as kids that we still have difficulty seeing what we might need in the future. And now I have 5 minutes, and I would like to show you a video that takes like 2 minutes. So then that will be 3 minutes for questions. Is that okay? Okay, great.
What do you have there?
It's a book.
Do you scroll down?
Nope. You turn the page. It's a book.
Can you blog with it?
No. It's a book.
Well, can it tweet?
No.
Can it text? Can it Wi-Fi? Does it need a password?
No.
Can it do this?
No.
It's a book.
Are you going to give it back? No, but I'll charge it up when I'm done. You don't have to.
It's a book by Wayne Smith.
Okay, so that was it. Thank you very much for my part.